Welcome to the Real Talk podcast. I'm Joel. I'm with Scott Benson and Christopher Invidiata, and we're going to talk about just the things that are happening in the real estate industry right now. And I'm an outsider, so this will be super fun. A deep dive into real estate with two of the biggest pros in the area. So super fun. Gentlemen, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. Thanks for organizing, and thanks for being here as well, Joel.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I bought my home from a friend, my first home, privately, and I was.
How long ago?
This would have been in Hamilton, downtown, in 2010.
Okay.
Actually, earlier than that, 2007. We bought it for 240 grand. Sold it for 269 grand the next year, and we were like, yeah, money made, right? And there were drug deals happening in front of our home, so we decided, let's move to the country.
Not good for raising kids.
Not good for raising kids. We had our 1-year-old at the time, and we decided to move out to the country. And that was, I could only do that because I could afford it. Like I was running a technology business. It was going incredibly well. We built a gaming company on Facebook, and that allowed us to buy in the country.
Good for you.
But would you say that's something that would be possible these days for a young couple that are just starting out? Like everyone is saying like, my kids are never going to be able to afford a home. Is that true?
Well, when the parents step in, it works.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's the best point, because right now, if you look at the people that actually have money in the bank, it's the boomers. So the boomer generation has real money. I would say that the bust and the echo generation, they may have equity in a home, maybe not. But as long as that boomer generation is willing to help the next generation, which we are seeing, I mean, we see that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Then I see it, becoming a potential. The other trend I see is you'll have an empty nester, which is, should be that boomer generation willing to maybe live in the basement. And then the kids live in the upstairs with, having the grandkids. And so that's something that's becoming a trend as well, especially in the countryside.
Multi-generational homes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Huh. The rate hike is the common discussion amongst people buying homes, and so there are three facets there, right? Obviously that you guys deal with. It's like, how do you talk, and you guys are leading agents, right? As in you are leading a number of agents yourselves. How do you talk to your agents about how to talk to buyers about buying homes with a rate hike from the central banks? And then like how, as a homeowner or home buyer, am I to like, do I believe all of the naysaying about real estate these days, or do I just go for it if I can afford it? You know what I mean? There's a dichotomy there happening.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and it's funny, but I think it was actually Christopher that mentioned to me, we become good friends, and I'm grateful for our friendship. We share best practices, but one of the things he said to me was, would you rather buy a house for 1.5 or $2 million at 2% interest rates, mortgage rates, or would you rather buy it for 1.2 or 1.7 at 5% interest rates?
Right.
And so that's actually the choice that the buyer has, and I think it's a good way to sort of enter into that conversation, because yes, you are going to pay a higher interest rate, and your payments monthly will be higher, but you should be taking a 15 to 20%
cut on the price.
So does it balance out? I'll tell you, out of the two, I would rather pay the lower price.
Plus, if you're bidding with 3 other bidders or 4 or 5, and you're paying $2,000, $100,000 over asking, take those dollars and now put them into the mortgage and into the savings in the price. So the fact the market is coming down is a benefit. And you think about it historically, the reality of interest rates, even today with the rates rising, they're still very, very low in comparison to, when they were 12%.
Right.
So the reality is we needed the rates to go up to calm the waters, just to tame the market, because you can't continue rising the way they were. So
it's interesting you say that, because just last week they announced that the inflation rate has gone down like a percentage of a percentage point, right? 0.1% from the previous. So it looks like the rate hikes are starting to impact inflation somewhat.
Oh, big time.
Is that good news for the real estate market? Or is it just like, whatever, you guys are adaptable in whatever scenario?
No, it's very positive. It's what they intended to do, and it's working, and it'll continue to work. The key for, I think, the industry is to make sure that they don't overdo it. Because once the market starts to flatline, it's dropping. As soon as it's finished to drop, it starts to bend, they should bring the rates back down.
Yeah, and I think that was, as an article I read, a BMO economist said, for a long time we've been hearing that there was a housing shortage, a housing crisis in Ontario. Raise the Bank of Canada rates, raise the mortgage rates, and all of a sudden we have a surplus of homes. So was there actually a housing shortage, or was there just cheap money to be used? And what I would say is tends to prove that with a housing surplus, all of a sudden we probably didn't have the shortage or the crisis that we thought we did.
Okay.
It seems more to me that it was affordability. And I think that's where we're at right now. It's like to find that balancing of the scale. And I'm glad it's not my job.
Right.
It is a hard job, but you have to find that balance of where does affordability, basically balance the market. And I think that we'll see that hopefully play out in the next 6 months, but I do think it'll be a 6-month trend while we watch it play out.
Okay, so let's turn the corner a little bit on the market and look at what's happening in the real estate game, because I'm not privy to the information you guys have about real estate. What is happening in real estate technology, real estate organizations? What is changing there in that space?
Well, it's a great question, because if you go back 30, 40 years, it's an evolution. You think about the way we did photos, we did, everything was black and white. You had to go deliver an offer, and today it's done in 2 minutes over the internet. So with DocuSign, all these tools that we have. So when you think of the curve that we're on with technology and where we're going to go with it, it's quite exciting.
And I'll tell you what's fascinating is look at us here. So, we're on a podcast where you've got competitive brands in each other's backyards aligning with one another for the benefit of the consumer.
Technically, you've infiltrated his offices.
Yeah, true. This is Christopher's beautiful office we're sitting in. So thank you for hosting. Thank you for the branded water too. And I lovingly call Christopher the father of real estate in Canada. He's somebody that I got into real estate 11 years ago. So we sort of looked to his brand and as being sort of a front runner, a leader in the industry, and certainly would have more experience outside of the last 11 years than I would. So, we'll glean that from him. But I look at the podcast, the YouTube content creation, basically social media being a big outlet for where we would just originally list it on, sort of an MLS database, and we would have local marketing. Most of it was signage and flyers. That has shifted significantly, especially since the pandemic era.
Really?
And it's been interesting. It's been a fast ride, so everyone's had to move really quickly. But I think ultimately what's happening is we're doing the right thing for the consumer. We're doing the right thing for our agents, and everybody wins. And so it's been interesting to sort of run and then try to catch up and learn new things. But the market's demanding and it's competitive, and we're going to continue to lead.
Yeah, it seems like the tools are there for almost anyone to make content well. You know what I mean? And I say that, with a certain amount of trepidation, because being content makers, it's really important to stay on your game and use new technology, new tools, new cameras, new lighting, all this stuff. Even that market is changing so rapidly. So I can imagine as real estate folks, trying to just stay on top of the game. What are the major trends that you're seeing? We just got to do this now. Is it podcasts? Is it social media? And now you're just you're selling 1 in 5 homes on Instagram? What is happening?
Yeah, you go ahead if you want, but I would just say, from my standpoint, it's the consumer that is dictating the course of marketing, what they want to see, and everybody right now can basically have a channel to speak to the consumer. So which channel is going to be appealing? Which channel is going to be a channel that people actually want to learn and grow and, maybe catch new listings from? And that space is up for grabs. And what I see is that if competitive brands don't start to partner and align themselves, we're still competitive with our own space. If Bob wants to sell his house down the street, Christopher wants that listing, I want that listing. Right. At the end of the day, we partner because we see it as an advantage to Bob. So whether or not Bob chooses Christopher or Scott's up to him, but we hope that he's choosing Christopher and Scott, or Scott, and not, Sue, Dan, et cetera, et cetera. And I think you'll see this trend start to grow.
Somewhat of a strategic consolidation of kind of like partners, or is that what it is? What it would be?
Yeah, I think we're still independent brands. We're still competitive in our own space. I think what it is we've realized that if the consumer can win from having competitive brands share marketing, share in a podcast, share in agent coaching and training, you're going to produce better agents. You're going to have a bigger reach. If Christopher called me up tomorrow and said, listen, I want you to bring your 35 agents through my listing, I would say absolutely. Because I want Christopher to bring his, tens of agents through my listing. Right. So that shared network is a win for the consumer. Yeah. And when the consumer wins, it will dictate the future of the industry. So I believe do what's right for the consumer. The rest of it takes care of itself.
Yeah, very true.
Christopher, what's your take on the kind of the landscape now? Are we in a place where real estate agents are going to have to become social media moguls to kind of make a living? Like where does that start and end?
Well, I think everybody starts their search online. Right. So the reality now today, it used to be 90-10. Now I think it's 100%. There's nobody out there who's just going to start looking.
Can I share a story?
Yeah.
Like not 2 weeks ago, my 12-year-old daughter is on the phone. Yeah. And I'm like, hey kiddo, I'd like to get you off the devices. Like we don't like them to spend too much time on devices. Sure. And I was asking her, so what do you spend so much time doing? Oh, I'm looking at properties. She had the Realtor.ca app open, and she was looking at 12 years old, like a pastime. I'm gonna go look at properties.
I think she called me. Your voice was a little dark.
Please forgive my daughter for taking up all of your time.
She's going to need your money to help her buy.
We were setting up a showroom for her. Yeah. No, but everybody today is searching everything online. Yeah. I mean, if we could start to deliver the house online to them, because they're getting lazier and lazier.
Right. Yeah.
But all kidding aside, everything now is driven by the internet. If you're not front and center on it, if you're not on these social media platforms to be a channel to it, you're missing it.
So I guess that makes any realty broker organization, technology company, effectively, like you have to be good at internet things.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting segue, because I mean the evolution of the first virtual company was called EXP that brought to the market. And their company flourished during COVID because everybody's locked down, and their whole system was all about technology driven, meetings online. Everything you want is virtual. Yep. And so the reality about being virtual today is where we're going. That's the trend. And the company that we've now joined is called Real, and they've also taken the approach to virtualization on how they operate their whole core business, programs, education, everything's all online.
Wow. And if you look at different sectors, maybe this is a bad example, I'm going to use it anyways. You'll see sort of a new sector that's coming into the Canadian landscape, which is the marijuana sector. You will find big corporate people leaving banks, CEOs, et cetera, and they'll come into this sector, they'll prove it, they'll build it up. And then they'll peel out and they'll prove it again. And Christopher mentioned EXP, and for me, that's basically a company that's on everybody's radar right now, every realtor's radar right now.
Okay.
And when we were talking about it, I said, there's probably a second to market. There's probably another one that's early stage where you can get in ground floor. And sure enough, there was this company, Real Broker. And what we found was the past COO, the past growth officer, the past president of EXP had actually moved over and were at Real. And I looked at that and I thought, these are smart people.
Right.
I want to find out what's going on. And so anyways, fast forward, here we are. But yeah, I think what you'll see is the traditional brokerages, which is, your brick and mortar, and it's franchise models. You have one owner, one location. They have grids. You can't cross this line with signage. That is going to, I would say, dwindle. I don't think it's going to die, but I think that they're going to face big attrition. And I think you'll find that the digital spaces, the digital brokerages, those cloud-based brokerages are going to flourish. And sorry, I'll just say, like, one thing I have realized about big brands that lead the industry is it doesn't matter which decade you're talking about, they're going to be on the forefront of what needs to be done. And so here we are. I mean, this is just where we need to be, and it's the next right move.
That brings up a question of, like, how does that impact the relationship? That, like, when I think about real estate, to me it feels like a relationship business.
Always.
It feels like you kind of have to build trust for the person who is taking you to homes to show them to you. They're kind of leaning into knowing you better so that they provide you the right home.
For sure.
Right.
Or at least the right listings. And then you're kind of taking a giant sum of money that arguably you've saved up, and now more than ever for a long period of time, to take this action. So the trust is really deep in this relationship.
Yeah. It's birth.
It really is.
It starts with knowledge and service, experience, trust, and relationship. The relationship should be your first focus, but it's the last outcome. Because if you fail in knowledge, service, the experience itself, the trust is not formed. You don't have a relationship.
Right.
But if you do those first four things well, the relationship is it's there forever.
Yeah.
And a good realtor should receive probably 80% of their business from their past clients because they serve them well.
Yeah.
And they build a relationship.
It's true. One thing I would add to that is that relationship was most often, up until even 5 years ago, an individual realtor. And that's still true today. So the individual realtor will have the relationship with the client. What I have found one of the big shifts to be is that the client is demanding mass marketing on their home. They want instant access to houses that they want to see. So if that realtor wants to wear 25 different hats and spend $2 million in advertising every year, I'm sure they can stay a one-man band. But what we have found is because there are 25 hats to wear, podcast, content creator, sign installer, flyer marketing, online marketing, DDF feeds, you name it. We're just doing all kinds of different jobs now, administrators, deal coordinators, lawyers, mortgage brokers. Unless you want to be all of that, then you're going to need a mega team. And this is where we saw sort of the surge or the movement towards the mega team model. And now the mega teams are partnering with other mega teams.
Right.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
And so it's really birthed out of the consumer's demand for better.
Okay.
And we owe it to them. So what I'm trying to say is the relationship will always be that individual agent. But unless that individual agent can point to a big engine behind them that's supporting their client, I feel that the individual agent will lose in the landscape moving forward. And this is where I think massive returns are better with the mega team model. I'm biased, obviously, but I don't think I'm wrong.
So how big is your team?
Yeah, so we'll run between 30 and 35 agents. And the reason that goes in flux is because we're training up agents. Sometimes they are a fit for our team. Other times in that sort of first 90 days, we see that maybe isn't a fit. So we'll sort of float in that number. And I know Christopher's floats up that high, and you kind of find the right size.
Okay.
But to me, the future of the industry is not going to be just individual teams trying to get to 1,000 agents, but it's going to be big brands that are successful in their own right partnering. Because this is the thing, Christopher does things well that we don't do well, and hopefully we do things that he doesn't do.
Exactly.
And so that sharing of knowledge and also access to different platforms for the client is a win. And so when you're an individual agent and you've got, you put your sign on the lawn and you got your smile and a handshake, and you're going up against big brands with massive marketing engines, you're going to lose.
Yeah. Well, it sounds also like those agents and brokers who are building good relationships are the ones attracting more talented agents. So it's kind of like this virtuous circle of like an upward cycle of goodness can happen when you're in community. And as a buyer, I like to see that you're not a one-man band, that you do have some accountability to some larger organization that is built on values or has integrity or something like that, right? So yeah, I get what you're saying. It sounds like, the trust is now shifting from just that one handshake to like that handshake.
So let me ask, the house you bought,
yeah.
do you still deal with that agent?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, we were at a party about a month and a half ago, and we saw, he plays music. I'm a musician by trade. So, and I went to his house and we had dinner with his family and played the guitar, and it's just like,
So became a friend.
just like a
Out of
great,
real estate.
yeah.
So there you go. That's a good agent. That's somebody who has invested in your heart.
And what I would say, just to take that one step further, that relationship is that now when it comes time to list or make your next move, if you see more value in a big brand that's going to market your home, what I'm really saying is, if you think you can get another $100,000 for your house because of someone else's marketing, it's going to have that relationship basically challenged with like, it's a great relationship. He's a great friend. But honey, I think we might make $100,000 more with this massive marketing engine. And all of a sudden, maybe you still go with that relationship, but the big brand, the big marketing, they get invited to the they get invited to the table, and we get to sit with you and show what we're doing. Right. And so, and we don't need to know who it is, but what I would say is that individual agent, in my opinion, moving forward, will realize that it's in his best interest, it's in his client's best interest to partner with the big brand. Keeps the relationship, but ultimately has that backing of a big marketing agent. The consumer wins, and this is what I think wins: value. So wherever the consumer sees the most amount of value, that's going to win in the end. Yeah. And ultimately, I believe that, and I could be wrong. I just don't think we're going backwards because there's agents out there, they're still hammering in their own signs. They're still going home, printing off the feature sheet, and making the magazine brochure. They'll come in with their own camera and try and shoot a video, but it's becoming harder and harder. Yeah.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating to think about all of these real estate agents in these teams who are having to learn new techniques, new skills. Is that a challenge in growing your team? Do you have to up-educate or upskill people on your teams? Are they finding the pressure of like, man, I got to really get my business together here?
Well, if you lead with mentorship, I think people learn, from my experience, the best. So if I show you what to do twice and I ask you to do it the third time, you're ready.
True mentorship. Wow, that's awesome.
It is, and he's got a heart for mentorship, which I love about him. I would say that for us, it's same thing, coaching and training. Again, at some point, I'll bring in Christopher to do some coaching and training for my team. And he may see a facet where I excel, and he may bring me in to coach and train his team. So it's like this back and forth sharing of knowledge. And I always want to be a student. I would say that this shift has been more difficult for me. We were big spenders in more traditional spaces. And so now to make another big investment in the go forward areas that are needed has been a challenge, but I would say it's a challenge that we take on. It's what I've realized is that in tough situations or in change or in hard economies, the leaders lean in while others pull back. And right now it's been hard, but we are leaning in, and we are, we're in it for the long haul. So if you don't change right now, if you don't shift to what the consumer demands are, you may as well pack it up. That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, it's evident in even just the way you guys are talking. It's like you love the space enough to deal with the challenges until the solutions show up. It even sounds like you're not necessarily fully aware of all the solutions right now, but you are seeking out true value for your clients and for your agents. It sounds like.
the solutions are changing. Like a month from now, there may, TikTok came on the scene. I mean, it probably came on the scene years ago, but it's
new.
It's fairly new. And so, is there another software coming out, another app coming out 2 months, 6 months from now? It's going to be the big thing. We'll adjust again. The cost of doing business is growing. So where we could have really focused on accessing our local MLS system as kind of that one-stop shop for content, now it's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, other teams, and we're trying to share marketing platforms. That's ever changing. So it's exciting. It's at times, for me, it can be scary when you're pumping out big dollars to try and get your clients more value. But we're competitive. I think that most agents in our markets, which would be sort of the Toronto, Greater Toronto area, they're competitive agents, and so we want to compete. It can be fun too, but it's been interesting, I would say.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's you guys have been both in business for a long time. And Christopher, I remember my wife is from Oakville, so and so we were married 17 years ago, and I remember coming to downtown Oakville and seeing the spaces and just seeing the Invidiata name along Lake Shore and different places in Oakville, thinking, man, these guys know what they're doing, right? And then we bought in Hamilton because that's all we could afford at the time, being a musician. But the truth is, like, there are some things that are new and changing, but there are some things that will never change about how you do business. What are those core things that you've taken the whole way through?
It's the relationship. That's the key. Because if you ignore that, or if you're looking past that, if you're only thinking about money, it's the worst thing to do. So if you're looking at the relationship first, you will not make a decision or give advice that is to your own benefit. You'll always give it to the client, who becomes your friend, that's your relationship. So, and they know that. And they see your honesty. So if I say, hey, Joe, you shouldn't be buying this, even though if I said you should buy it, could put money in my pocket. But if I said you should not be buying this, you're going to trust me now more than before. Because I'm serving you, I'm not serving myself. So if that is the core of your business model, is to seek out the relationship, everything grows from there.
Right. So then the tools just come in as a convenience for the clients and the agents to kind of build the relationship or make it easier or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
well, I tend to agree. I don't have much to add to that. I think for us, the relationship, we realize, is basically the primary focus. Care about people. We stand on a slogan, I guess, at our brokerage, which is work hard, be kind, stay humble. And it's hard work. I mean, you go out and show one client 65 houses before they buy, times that by 10 clients that you've got at one time. That's a lot of effort. Have you ever fired a client where it's like, no, can't work with you anymore?
Oh, yeah.
Christopher, I can't think of one. I'm sure it's happened. Certainly been fired. But I don't know. I can't think of a client I tend to, if there's someone that was really bothersome or, maybe offside in certain areas, I tend to really want to get that paycheck at the end for having to deal with it. So maybe I stuck it out, but I don't know.
That's fair.
Yeah.
We've let a few go.
Okay.
Because their behavior, even to my staff, was so bad. I said, look at, and they go, well, you're not going to get any more referrals. I said, I don't want more people like you. So
that's fair.
I mean, that's a really, it sounds like a small statement, but it actually is a big statement to say, like, these are the kinds of people we want to deal with, right? So if you're taking those values through to your business and it leads into better technology, more value from a relationship standpoint, then I think that does spread, that's a personal bias. I do really like working with nice, great people, right? And I think most people are like that. Sure. I would even say most buyers probably would not be like, it's all about the bottom dollar. They're not fully only considering the price. So to your statement on the $100,000 extra, right? There would be an internal conflict of like, oof.
Well, you've hit on a good point. So it's very, very different to be a buyer than a seller, because as a buyer, you want somebody who's a friend to shop with.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're happy to do that with a relationship that you have. It's almost like, I'm going to get a new shirt today. You want to come to the mall with me? When you're selling a home, that's now your largest asset, generally speaking. And if you can convince someone that there's more money to be made or a more efficient way of going about it, perhaps there's a buyer that we have that's ready to buy your house, then actually you can get a seat at the table. And so that's the shift, is when it's and for us as realtors, we tend to focus more on the listings because most people want to sell first and then buy.
Right.
It's very unusual to find someone that wants to buy first and then sell. It happens, but I would say 20%, 80-20 sort of thing. So yeah, for us, we would say
It's safer.
It's safer. It's definitely safer. Yeah. And I think that, you think even Christopher will go up the ladder in the luxury markets, and you would think that, people with a lot of money, they're fine to buy first, but actually they have a lot of money because they make smart decisions.
Right.
And so they tend to be conservative in nature as well. So I do find that if you focus on the listing, the buyers will come. And yes, the relationship is paramount, no question. So I concede it. But what I'm saying is if you just have a relationship and you're not bringing the value, the advertising value to back it, that's a losing model moving forward. You need both.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need progressive thinking, progressive decision making, especially in challenging markets like we're in right now. And the 90s was all declining for 7 years. And once you realized how to deal in a declining market, it became easier. So most people hope the markets are always going to go up. Well, when they're starting to drop, you have to go with the flow. And if I sell your home for $100,000 less than you were hoping, we could put a condition in your offer on your home upon you buying for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So you go out and you try to make another purchase and save the $100,000 that you just lost. So it's all relative.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So you do have some options in downturns. Let's call them downturns because that's what everyone's calling the current scenario as a downturn.
Yeah. Or you don't let go of your house.
Right.
Unless you make up the 100 that you just.
Yeah, you just stick it through, don't sell.
It's all relative. If you're selling and buying in the same market, it's all relative.
Yeah, and this other thing too to notice is real estate is the service industry. So when you have that relationship and you really like that realtor, by the way, by the end of this podcast, you have to choose one of us.
That's the game, folks. At the end, I have to pick one.
Yeah.
Let's do an arm wrestling.
Or what you will see more of, which is going to be fascinating, competitive brands partnering together on the listing. So actually, we both represent you. That's another podcast in itself. But anyways, what I was going to say is because we're in the service industry, you could meet a really, really nice tattoo artist, and you might really, really like him or her. But what's the actual art like? How many tattoos has he done? If he said, Joel, we got a great relationship. We just went out to dinner last Thursday. You're going to be my third tattoo. You ready? You might at that point.
That's not a Harley.
Yeah, that's not a Harley. You might at that point say, well, let me just consult my wife and see if there's actually some other options, some better value out there. Same thing I think about often is, a pilot. There's some airlines we won't fly, right? So that's fair. And I think that's, a brand new airline that's it's a discount airline just popped on the scene. You don't want to let that ride for about a year until you jump on that plane. And the reason is because, well, what if that pilot is new? And on a smooth flight, 99, 100% of the pilot can get you there. When there's bumps, when there's turbulence, when there's an emergency landing.
When the pilot comes up with those goggles on, they're scared.
Yeah.
That's not a good look.
That's not good. It's at those times, well,
Exactly.
you'll be thankful that you had a pilot who's got 30 years or, thousands of flights in their back pocket. And this is where we're seeing the industry go.
It's the brain surgery argument, right? It's like, who do you want to do brain surgery on you? Yeah. You're gonna probably go with the guy who's done more brain surgeries and not your local doctor who says, yeah, I'll take it up today.
And I think the most important thing is, because we know that real estate's not brain surgery, but there are ins and outs in the process where the stronger negotiator can pick up $20, $30, $50,000 off the weaker negotiator. There are conditions and ways of negotiating that support and protect your buyer, like Christopher was talking about condition on sale of house and how to work through that. So we're not here to say that like it's really, really difficult to sell real estate, but what we are saying is that there's more and more value that's going to be required from the consumer. And if we don't get into that space, and then when it changes again 6 months from now, we need to get into that space, our consumers demanding it.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Quick take on the current market and what you feel agents and people who are buying and selling should know.
Well, I still think the rule number one in real estate is location, location, location. So good properties are still the focal point. Just because it's a good price doesn't mean it's a good property. So if something's in distress and you say, hey, I can buy it because it's like drop, 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 doesn't make it a good property. So be cautious about that. Location, 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 still the key.
Yeah, and I agree. You know, you can't deny the fact that like location will win. We always, teach the 3 L's on my team, which is lot, layout, location. If you love the location, if you love the lot, and you can work with the layout, that's a good buy at any time in any market. The thing I would probably add is that we are in a current space where patience will probably be paid off. So I don't think this is a market where you need to jump in. I think if you find the right property, go ahead. But I think that there's some downside to what we're seeing, and we'll see if I'm wrong. But I've got my cash on the sidelines and I'm ready for some opportunities. But I have a feeling that November, December, January may give us some better opportunities than we're seeing even now.
Okay, so and it's August 2022 right now.
Yes.
So prognostications about the future, anything where you guys are like, this is how it's going to be in a year from now?
I still think the rates are low. Even though they're rising, they're still historically low, which is great. So that to me is still a good signal for people to buy. Immigration is about to start, which it was sidelined for a long time because of COVID. So if you add 300,000 more people into the GTA looking to live, or 160,000, that's a lot of people. So I wouldn't wait too long. If you're a speculator, it's a different mindset. But if you're a homeowner, think 5 years. Buy, hold.
Good advice.
Yeah. I don't have much to add as well. I think that for me right now is a good time to be conservative. I don't think this is a time to go frivolously, trying to throw in lowball offers and pick up what you can. I think just watch. I think there's some macroeconomics on the scale that are bigger than a local market and bigger than my understanding, higher than my pay grade. But I do feel that, the stock market, for example, is 6 months ahead of us. Always the retail market. So if you look at the stock market, it just rebounded. In the last 45 days, we've seen a rebound. I think there's a lot of false positive hope right now, thinking that the real estate market's going to see that same uptick. I don't think that's coming. I think that you'll see the stock market drop again. And then I think that there could be, S&P, I think will go down to 4,000, somewhere around there. And I think that the real estate market will probably drop another 15%. I think that that's probably more pessimistic than the average outlook, but I want to be honest, that's my real view.
So Real Broker, it's a virtual cloud-based broker. Can you tell us about it a little bit?
Absolutely. So I've been at real estate for 37 years. And somewhere around my 25th year, I started thinking to myself, we don't have a retirement plan. So if there was a way to have a retirement plan within real estate, it would be great. And plus, if we don't own part of the company that we're with, that would be better. So when Real came along, it was like you have shares in the company, you have ownership. As it grows, your stock grows. And number two, there's a revenue share program, which to me equates to like a pension or a retirement fund. So those are the two missing links that I thought were in the industry that were needed, and now they've come to bear.
Yeah, and I think for me, Real Broker, the cloud-based model, is just picking up steam. So I would say it's second to market, behind EXP. I watched a lot of the executives of EXP roll over and start Real, the past COO, the past growth officer. The past president of EXP rolled over, sits on the board of directors at Real, and I kind of watched that. And I wouldn't say that I'm an academic. I certainly can't look at, market trends and be an economist by any means, but I would say that I've got street smarts, and I watched very smart people make very, very quick moves, and I wanted to be a part of it. I at least wanted to figure it out. And once I did a deep dive and then I did look at my options, I realized this is actually the future of real estate. So you're bringing big competitive brands to the table that are actually going to share best practices. They're going to grow coaching and training for their agents. You see Christopher and I making competitive partnerships. So we're still competitive within our own right, but we see that our agents will benefit. Our clients will benefit. In fact, the industry benefits as a whole. So for me, I want to be on the cutting edge of every single facet of my business. And I couldn't deny that if I didn't make the move, I would be lagging. And so that's one of the reasons I did it.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, so good. All right, that's Real Talk.